Part 7. The Pause Between Heartbeats. The elevator glided silently up to the 33rd floor. Elizabeth leaned against the mirrored wall, the city lights flickering behind her reflection. Her eyes softened as she recalled Bradley's fingertips tracing the edge of her wrist earlier that evening. So casual, yet so deliberate. Like he was studying her pulse, as if it told him everything he needed to know. She let out a slow breath, steadying herself in the quiet hum of the space. The warmth of his touch lingered longer than she expected, like an echo pressed gently beneath her skin. For a moment, she let her eyes fall shut, savoring the weightless calm she carried up from the rooftop lounge. The doors opened into a private corridor, lined with muted sconces and thick cream carpet. She walked slowly, her heels barely making a sound. The atmosphere hushed and elegant, like it too had secrets worth keeping. Each step toward her door felt deliberate, softened by memory. The evening had folded into her like a silk sheet pulled across bare shoulders. Warm, comforting, and intimate in a way that made her breath catch more than once. Her penthouse greeted her with its usual understated opulence. Low lighting, clean lines, everything in its place. But tonight, it felt different. Like her space was waiting for her to arrive. Not just physically, but completely. She slipped off her heels and let her clutch fall gently to the marble counter. The scent of her own perfume still lingered in the air. Oud, sandalwood, and a trace of bergamot. A memory stirred. Bradley's voice.
Real luxury,
He'd said earlier at the lounge.
isn't loud. It's in the details you almost miss, unless you're paying attention.
She had paid attention. The private jazz room he'd taken her to was discreet, hidden behind a velvet curtain in the back of a boutique hotel in Buckhead. Intimate, elevated. No menus, just a handwritten card with the sommelier's nightly selections and a bartender who remembered their names from the last time. They sat close, closer than they had before, on a velvet settee, her thigh lightly grazing his. It wasn't accidental. Nothing between them was accidental anymore. The band played slow, syrupy renditions of Coltrane and Ellington, the kind that didn't just fill a room, but wrapped around you like a warm shawl. Bradley ordered her a glass of Syrah without asking, and somehow, it was exactly what she would have chosen. They talked, but differently this time. Fewer words, more watching, listening, feeling. A new kind of conversation. There were pauses now, intentional ones, like the spaces between notes in a ballad. Pauses that said, "I see you. I'm here." And when she'd excused herself to the restroom, she'd caught her reflection in the mirror. And she knew. She knew she was no longer deciding. She'd already decided. She returned to find Bradley standing near the balcony, the city stretching out behind him in golds and silvers and shadows. He turned as she approached, and his smile, it wasn't the polite kind. It was the kind that makes you feel like home and heat all at once.
Come here.
He said, quiet but sure. And she did. No question. He reached out and tucked a loose curl behind her ear, his knuckles brushing the line of her cheekbone.
I want to know everything.
He murmured.
Start somewhere.
She whispered. So he did. Right there, on that balcony, he told her about the night Ava was born, how terrified he was, how nothing felt real until he heard her cry. He told her about his mother's garden, how she believed basil could fix any heartbreak. He told her he hadn't felt this, open, in years. Elizabeth listened with her whole body. And when the music drifted out onto the balcony and their silence settled between them like a blanket, she said softly,
I want to know everything, too.
Bradley's hand found hers, fingers entwined, no rush, no pressure, just the kind of quiet closeness that makes the rest of the world dim. Back in her house, Elizabeth lit one of her signature candles. Black wax, gold jar, notes of amber and vetiver. She turned on her playlist, the one she only played on nights she wanted to feel something fully. She sat on the edge of the chaise lounge, near the floor-to-ceiling windows, the skyline glittering like a jeweled curtain. Her phone buzzed on the table. Marcus. Again. This time, a voice memo. She stared at it for a long moment. Then, without listening, she held the phone down and deleted it. A breath left her body, sharp and clean, final. A kind of peace moved in to replace it. Not the kind you force, the kind that comes softly, like dusk easing into evening. She poured herself a small glass of red, only a finger or two, and opened her journal, the one with pages still waiting from last summer. She touched the pen to the paper, paused, and finally wrote,
Tonight, something opened in me. Not a door, not a wound, something sacred, and I let it.
She set the pen down and leaned back, letting the music wash over her. The track playing now was gentle piano layered with soft strings. The kind of song that felt like remembering something you never knew you forgot. She let her head fall against the back of the chaise, her gaze lifting to the ceiling as her breath slowed. In the stillness, she thought of Bradley's voice, low, warm, calm. Thought of how he looked at her like she was something he'd hoped existed, but never expected to find. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains like a secret. She moved slowly, letting the quiet settle around her like silk. No rushing, no obligations. Just a Saturday in its purest form. The scent of her candle had faded, but lingered faintly in the air, a reminder of the night before. She sat on the edge of her bed for a moment, her toes pressing softly into the plush carpet. A message appeared on her phone. Bradley.
Brunch? My treat. I know a place with real linen napkins and a sommelier who moonlights as a poet.
She laughed softly.
Only if the poetry comes with mimosas.
He replied instantly.
Always. Be ready at 11. No heels necessary. Unless you want to stun the room again.
She looked out the window, the day already beginning to warm. The city shimmered under the promise of late summer. The kind of day that stretches out luxuriously before you, full of possibility. She walked to her closet and pulled out a soft cream-wrapped dress, something light but elegant. She chose gold hoops, a delicate ankle bracelet, and a fragrance that lingered like memory. Iris, tobacco flower, and black currant. As she smoothed the fabric over her waist, she caught her reflection again. Something had changed, not her face, not her posture, but the way she looked at herself, like someone who had come home to her own body. Brunch was at a converted art gallery turned cafe in a quiet corner of Midtown. Everything was curated. Black marble tables, minimalist dishware, muted jazz playing from hidden speakers. The kind of place you didn't find unless you knew where to look. Bradley was already there, reading a hardback copy of a Baldwin essay collection, a linen blazer draped across the back of his chair. He stood when she approached. He always stood. And when he leaned in to kiss her cheek, his hand lingered at her waist just a moment longer than before. They sat, ordered, talked. But now their conversation had undercurrents. Now there were glances that held meaning, touches that lingered. And when their server brought a small chocolate torte, compliments of the chef, Elizabeth raised a brow.
You do know everyone.
She teased.
I try to keep good company.
They shared it, one fork, back and forth, and when she licked a bit of chocolate from her thumb, Bradley's eyes didn't stray. He held her gaze, and in it, she saw something simmering, slow, intentional, something not yet said but no longer hidden. Later, when they stood to leave, Bradley took her hand, not like a date, like something more, like a man who decided what he wanted and wasn't afraid to show it.
Come back with me,
He said softly. Not a question, an invitation. Elizabeth paused, the sun on her skin, the memory of his voice, the taste of shared chocolate still on her lips.
Yes,
She said, and meant it.